right. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Reentry Room podcast, all about working motherhood and how we can make it easier and talk about the real truths, the hard truths, and the honesty about motherhood and postpartum and being a working mom and everything in between all of that. I'm Alexa Starks. I'm your host. I'm the founder of Executive Moms. I'm a maternity leave coach. I help moms navigate planning maternity leave and their postpartum experience returning to work, and help companies support moms returning to work. And today I have an amazing guest with me. Her name is Miriam Rubin, and she is the co-founder of Listen to Your Mothers. And she does something very similar. She also helps companies turn workplace policies and culture into a competitive edge and retain their top talent, aka moms. Because we know that when we listen to working moms and moms in general, organizations thrive, teams flourish, employers see better results. So, Miriam, welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and this is our second time talking, third time,
I think so.
second.
I think second. A lot
Yeah,
of LinkedIn chatter in the in between.
yeah. So I am very excited to have you on today. So I would love if you could give a little overview of yourself, what you do, where you are in your motherhood journey,
Yeah,
and then we'll go from there.
sure. Well, you did a great intro of Listen to Your Mothers, but again, just to say, my name's Miriam Rubin. I'm co-founder and CEO of Listen to Your Mothers. I work alongside three other amazing women who are also moms and professionals navigating all the chaos that comes with that. And we have poured our heart and soul into our business. Our focus is centering moms, but recognizing, as you said, that when you center moms and what their needs are, everybody benefits, including employers and the business. So that's really what we do specifically. My background is actually in education and nonprofits. And so I've done a lot of leadership in nonprofits and then have done like education finance and a lot of work with implementation, change management. So that's kind of what I bring to our work now, as along with kind of strategy and business development. And then we have a HR professional on the team who is really driving our policy development work, and somebody else who does engagement and really focuses on how do we authentically engage employees to find out, first and foremost, what they need, and then craft policies and strategies around that. And then finally, we have our marketing person on the team as well. And I, wanted to found Listen to Your Mothers and do this work because of my own motherhood journey. And especially that second kid. I know we were just talking about the second kid
Yeah.
kind of puts you over the edge. You're like, the first one, I'm still a little bit, I think it's hard, but you can balance that ambitious career with the first,
Yep.
and then the second, I think, at least for me, made me question a lot of things about my priorities. But and so I made a pretty significant career move after my second was after I went back to work with my second, because it was just I had moved pretty far up in the education school district, and I was very passionate about it. I loved it, and also like it was impossible to do with two small kids. And I think specifically something around being in the education sector, I was like, I don't want to have to make this decision, and I don't think they really want that either. I think it's important for moms to be in leadership roles in education, and there are things that we could have done, like that I could have done, and also that my employer could have done to help me stay longer. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I'm committed to now.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love that. I mean, there's so much similarities to our stories, first of all,
Hmm.
just about how really that second baby pushes you over the edge and you're like, fuck, I can't do this anymore. Like, now this is totally unsustainable. And you do have that, like, identity shift or reprioritization of what matters
Hmm.
now that you have two kids. And so many other moms go through that questioning of, like, my career used to matter to me. Now it kind of doesn't anymore as
Sure.
much.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the hard part for me was like my career does still, like, it did matter. And I think for you, you know, it's like, it's not really a choice. I think sometimes we talk about it as a rebalancing and like that's something
Mm-hmm.
that wants to happen. And I think for me, I felt very much forced into it because the systems don't work. And
Yeah.
so, and that was really hard because I had worked really hard to get where I was, and it was something that I was very passionate about. And I wanted to be a good mom and a good wife, and I just, you know, like I felt like I didn't have any other choice, and I think that is, you know, a really critical piece of it is like sometimes we don't, and sometimes we do want to make career choices and make and like balance things out, and that's great if that, you know, like, and also in the places where like we can control people not kind of being forced into this impossible decision. I think there's a lot of room where there's some low hanging fruit, which is what I'll talk about in a second,
Yeah.
that we can reduce that
Mm-hmm.
strain. So.
I love that. I mean, I think so many other moms listening are also going to really resonate with that, just because it is such a familiar story. But it almost feels like of all the industries or sectors that moms and women can work in, it feels like there's no safe one. Or
Mhm.
like, you know, in my mind, I'd be like, oh yeah, education, teachers, like maybe that's the safe workplace environment, the safe. I'm doing air quotes if anyone's listening. The safe like sector of industry that would not have workplace issues. You'd be like, oh, for sure they would know how to support moms, but there kind of isn't.
Right. Well, and what kills me is like, you know, education sector is so heavily female dominated. Like when
Hmm.
women go out on maternity leave, like it's not a surprise. That's
Right.
been happening. Like that's actually how the business runs. If
Yeah.
we can have babies so we can, and yet like it's hard to solve. And when you look at sectors that are more male dominated, like the tech sector, like they actually have things
Have some
figured
more
out
benefits.
and like
Yeah.
a lot more leave policies, for example, like if we're just
Hmm.
looking at that. And so that just, I think we just expect a lot from women and moms, and we don't expect them to ask for very much in return. And, you know, we're amazing and we can do a lot, and that's awesome. And also, it's time for us to start asking for more and getting what we need. So,
Yay. All right. On that note, let's get into
yeah.
the meat of this episode. It's going to be really juicy. So, we're going to do for this episode What She Knows, your reflective, tactical conversation about your biggest lesson you've learned about motherhood, or work, or yourself, and how other moms can apply it. So, what do you have for us today?
Yeah, well, so I'm so excited about this. I decided that the thing that I wanted to talk about today is all things pumping and managing pumping at work because, kind of getting at what we said before, it's such a if people can figure it out, it is such a win-win. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like it doesn't cost employers very much money for any of the solutions I'm going to talk about. And it's helping support moms in like one of the most stressful moments in their life. It's not a long moment in the scheme of
Right.
like their entire life cycle, but it is the time where they really can break, as I'm sure
Yeah.
you can
I
attest to.
tried pumping and I
Yeah,
could not, it was not sustainable. I mean,
right.
I think I did pumping a little bit with both of my babies for maybe a couple weeks, maybe like
Yeah.
a month at most. And I was like, I just can't keep up with pumping 7 times a day.
Right. It
You know,
it
like
doesn't
it's
give you
not
as much
sustainable.
back as the baby does.
Yeah. And then you try adding work into the mix.
Yeah.
So, okay. So
Yeah.
please continue.
So yeah, so and for me, I'll just say like it was the straw that broke the camel's back with that second time. You
Hmm.
know, there was other, of course, other things, but I returned to work during the formula shortage. I had had a lot of trouble breastfeeding with my first baby, and then with my second, it was working out. So I was like really, it was emotional for me to be able to do that. And then I got back to work, and my supply was like dwindling, and I asked for more time to be remote, and it was denied because, and I was just like, I'm just trying. Um, like, and I think part of it was like if anybody had really known like how serious, like how bad I was doing at the
Hmm.
time, like they probably would have been like, okay, okay, but it's like
Yeah.
it's hard to put yourself out there and say that, and it's really impossible for people to understand unless they've gone through
Hmm.
it. So,
Yeah.
that's why I chose pumping as as the topic. Um, yeah, so I
Pumping
have
is
many things
so
to say, so
pumping
feel free to
is
ask me, guide
yes.
me if you want.
Okay, so because this is an important topic, and I talk about this also in my reentry blueprint system for moms about how to ask for like, hey, I need to
Yes.
put pumping breaks on my calendar, and how do you
Hmm.
say that right confidently?
Hmm.
Because at 3 months postpartum, if you get 3 months off, you're like a mess still,
Yeah.
and how do you find the words to say that? And it's very uncomfortable. And yeah, like I struggled so much too with my second baby. Looking back, I'm like, ooh, like I feel so bad for myself because I didn't know how
Hmm.
to say anything. And um, it's just such a hard time. But okay, so how do you? So I actually just had a really good conversation with someone this week about lactation pods and how
Hmm.
there's more and more companies that are putting in a lactation pod because of the Pump Act. So
Yeah.
how have you seen this like resistance to necessary pumping breaks in the workplace now that it's sort of lawfully required that companies have to give pumping
Yeah.
breaks?
Yeah. What's interesting, I don't know if the breaks is the biggest piece that I've seen as a challenge. I think like there's a few things. First and foremost, like if you don't, if you have never pumped, even if you have been a parent, if you have been a father, if you have had a friend who's pumped, you do not know what it's like. And we can not assume that you do, which means that
Hmm.
most managers don't actually know what their employees are going through.
Hmm.
And that is a huge piece of it. Like, I like was trying to explain my situation, all my like fog, and somebody who actually was a father said, "Oh, your supplies are running out. Somebody, there's some long weekends coming up, so you should be fine." Like, and that's like totally like well intentioned, but it's just like they just don't know, and they're not gonna ask because boobs. Like
Yeah.
nobody wants to talk about boobs at work,
Right. Right.
understandably, right? And
Hmm.
so I think the first thing, honestly, low level is like how do we educate employers? Not they don't need to know all of it, but like on number one that there's a law. Like I think
Hmm.
if you're not in HR, you don't necessarily know the ins and outs of the compact. And
Hmm.
so whether you're a mom or an expectant mom or a manager, you just don't know. And so like when somebody sees somebody pumping in the bathroom, like unless you have read that law, you're going to be like, "Oh, okay, well that makes sense." Like,
Hmm.
or have gone through it. So that's like the baseline is like how do we educate? I think there's also like how does pumping work? Like why does somebody need to take 3 breaks a day? Like why does it take so long? Why do they have to
Hmm.
go off and do it? Like people like literally or and then like um, if you forget one of those tiny little like plastic parts, then your whole
Oh,
day is ruined because your pump
yeah.
doesn't work anymore. Like those are things that I think somebody needs to tell employers, and it probably isn't the mom who is going through it, but I
Yeah.
think there's a lot that we can do to train employers. And to be my dream is to do like a ask all or like a employers ask me anything about pumping
Ooh. Okay.
session because
I want to
yeah.
write that down as like a note. Maybe that's something we could do together.
That would
Um,
be please that would be so
yeah.
fun. I would love that. Like they can submit anonymously, they can ask, but
Yes.
no judgment, just ask your questions because we need you to
Hmm.
know. It's just like I'm not going to tell you while I'm also trying to feed my baby.
I need to write that down.
Yeah, so that's the
This is gonna be part
baseline.
of the episode. But continue. Continue.
Yeah. So yeah, anyways, that's the baseline is like education. And then on the mom side too, like you need to know what your rights are. Like I hear too
Uh-huh.
many moms be like, "Oh, oh, like I had to pump in like open space with like
Mm-hmm.
like as if that's like an okay thing, and it's not,
Yeah.
and it's not
But
funny.
we've
So
normalized it.
right, we're normalizing it, and so we need to know what our rights are, and which is hard. It's really hard to
Mm-hmm.
advocate for yourself when you're in such a delicate state. But I think um, that's another piece. And then in terms of yeah, I mean, I think the like comfortable space goes a long way, like as literally like just between the two of us. But I've never talked to a mom who says, "Oh my gosh, I love pumping."
I know.
Like even if they're like have been able to sustain it, like my cousin pumped for an entire year. Like I'm so proud of her and produced a lot of milk and all that. But like even still, it's like it's not fun. And so like if an employer can just make the space feel nice, like
Mm-hmm.
a comfortable chair, like
Yep.
and maybe like a nice smelling space. I don't know, whatever. Like just putting a little thought into it and recognizing like this should be a relaxing space. That can go a
Mm-hmm.
long way, and that's why I love the pods piece of it. Um, and then having like the supplies. And again, this is what I'm like, this is why I love it. So cheap. Like getting sanitary wipes to help people so that
Mm-hmm.
they can quickly wipe out their pump supplies. Like that is a very
Yeah.
cheap investment, right? But
And a
like
mini
for
fridge. Mini
yes,
fridge. Because
exactly.
surprisingly, milk needs to be refrigerated once it
Right.
leaves the body. Shocker, shocker.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's like then moms don't have to think about that and they can think about the
Mm-hmm.
work that they're doing instead. I think it also like signals to people that like, oh, like this workplace gets it. So it's
Yep.
there was one of my friends started at a new company, and in their employee handbook it said that they have a policy where they'll ship milk if they're if they're traveling for work, they'll ship
Oh, cool.
mom's milk. And I think like she's not having any more kids, and probably not that many people will need that service, but like something about that being written in there, like, oh, they get that that's actually a thing that people would need, was
Mm-hmm.
like, she was like, oh yeah, I'm in. I'm taking
Yeah.
this job.
Just for
Because they
that
get it.
policy.
Yeah. So I think that's the kind of thing. And then
Mm-hmm.
I think like the breaks, back to your original question, um, is a piece of it, but I also think if people understand how it works, they won't question the breaks as much.
Mm-hmm. And
Now
I
it
think
gets
it's
tricky.
important to normalize the conversation. I know we talk about like, oh, boobs, who wants to talk about boobs in the workplace? But
Mhm.
theoretically, like 50% of the population is women. And a
Yeah.
very large chunk of those women will at some point in their career
Hmm.
have children.
Hmm.
And technically, everybody comes from a woman. So it shouldn't be so taboo to talk
Yeah.
about the life uh, source feeding your baby and
Right.
that what needs to happen to do that. Everybody
Yeah.
comes from a mom. This shouldn't be taboo to
For
discuss
sure.
that
And
stuff.
it doesn't even need to be a conversation if people are uncomfortable with the boobs part. They can read something. Like there's enough information out there. Like we have a blog post about it. Like you can read about how it works. But I think yeah. The one thing I will say around the breaks that we've seen is like, and I'm all about just saying like, everything is industry specific, and there are
Mm-hmm.
some industries where breaks are a lot harder than others, and some jobs where they're a lot. So if we take like teaching for example, and just to be clear, like I wasn't a teacher, so being remote and taking the breaks wasn't my issue, but I know many people who are, and that's truly very challenging because like you have to get somebody to cover your classroom, and like that is not easy right now. It's hard to find people to cover like the
Mm-hmm.
classrooms as is. And so I think that gets to just like really needing to work closely with whatever industry and type of employer there is to figure out what that solution looks like for them. Like, and for
Mm-hmm.
education, I'm obsessed with like just talking about team teaching and making sure like team teaching, making sure there's cluster subs who are like in the building ready to support, which is
Mm-hmm.
like a totally
Yeah,
different solution than like another industry might be. So
I love it. Okay,
yeah.
so we've talked a lot about what workplaces can do. What can
Hmm.
a mom do? What's something important she can do as her first step. Maybe she's preparing to go back to work, or she is back at work already and struggling with juggling pumping and
Yeah.
work. What can she do?
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I would say is like lactation specialists a lot of times have really great resources for schedule. I think figuring out the pumping schedule is like so complicated and shifting from like especially if you were breastfeeding and shifting
Yeah.
to figuring out like how does that translate into well so I think like drawing on the resources that you have around in the community you have around is like crucial. I know, you know, like I don't know if you've gone through it before, you have all this wisdom to share about your own journey, and it's like it's gonna go to waste. So like for I don't know about you, but for me, if somebody asks me like, can you help me like talk through what my pumping schedule will be like when I go back, I'm like, yes. I'd be happy to do that. And I think there's a lot of moms out there who are like that
Yeah.
too. So just like drawing on community. And then like I said, like knowing your rights,
Mm-hmm.
understanding what the workplace policy, like what are they offering, and if they're not offering what you need them to, um and this is hard, like I think people are at totally different comfort levels in terms of asking for what they need, but I think, starting with knowing what you have and how it compares to what
Yeah.
you're entitled to is very important.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you are kind of in a space to ask, going to HR or the equity office or whoever it is to
Mm-hmm.
advocate. But I think the other piece there that I've thought a lot about is most times like those pumping rooms. I think there's like an opportunity there because
Mm-hmm.
you're not the only one who's using it. You might not see the other
Right.
people using it, but you see their milk, and so there were times I didn't do this, but there were times where I wanted to like leave a note for the
Aw,
room to
that's
just
so
be like, should
cute.
we organize? Like, are we okay? How are we all doing with this?
I
And I
love
just
it.
wonder if there's like an opportunity to build more community
Mm-hmm.
in that space.
Yeah.
So that's one other piece. And then I think like just sometimes I think for employers and it's the idea of there's just like this general notion that like if leaves after coming back from having a baby, it's like, oh yeah, well they had a baby, that's normal. They left, and like they're kind of like, this is not something that I have any control over. And
Mm-hmm.
also, like, if I wanted to try to have control over it, where would I even start? Like this,
Yeah.
and so I think that being able to, as much as possible, highlight for employers what very tangible, specific things that you need. And this is a
Mm-hmm.
little bit side from pumping, but like for me, the our parking lot was really far from my building, and it was the winter, and I was like, I told my boss, I was like, I'm going to fall on the ice while I'm pregnant unless you either walk me to my car or
Uh-huh.
you let me park in your fancy parking spot. And like he did, and he was so happy
Aw.
to do it because like
Yeah.
it wasn't that hard. So I think similarly, like, like, can you pay? Here's a link to a chair. Can we have it? Like, what about a hospital
Mm-hmm.
grade pump? Like, just kind of making it more tangible for folks. What would be helpful, I think, is a big one as well.
I love that. And I know that's something that's included in the return rate. Always a tongue twister. The reentry blueprint system that I
Hmm.
give to expecting moms is the hardest part is knowing what to say, how to say it, and
Yeah.
especially if you're postpartum. And so the
Hmm.
more you can set yourself up for success, the better experience you'll have.
For
Um,
sure.
but I
Yeah.
love this.
And I
This has been
think,
such a good conversation.
oh,
Ooh,
good.
what?
Just one other thing on that note,
Yeah.
and you probably say this in the guide, but I think try as much as you can turning that like anxiety of going back to work into planning, versus trying to
Mm-hmm.
do it once you get there, I think
Yes.
is another big piece.
Mm-hmm.
Like trying to figure out how the system is going to work for pumping and asking for what you need
Yep.
before you get back, because once you're in it,
Yeah.
you're going to there's so many other things to think about.
Exactly. And that postpartum time when you get back, it's ultimate survival mode.
Yes.
and you're also probably very sleep deprived. So the more you
Hmm.
can plan this all while you're pregnant,
Yeah.
the easier time it'll be.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Yeah.
sure.
I love this. Well, this has been amazing, Miriam. Thank you so much for joining us. Where can listeners find you or find some resources that you have?
Yeah, I would just direct everybody to our website, listentoyourmothers.com. We have a whole resources page there, and you can see more information about us. And then we're also on LinkedIn under Listen to Your Mothers as well. So would love to.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yes, and I will link to that in the description as well, and including a link to the reentry blueprint system for moms. If you are an expecting mom and pregnant, plan your maternity leave, plan your return to work, how to advocate for yourself, do it while you're pregnant,
Or at
hopefully.
least on leave. Or on leave. I
Exactly,
think.
or at least on leave, so you can set yourself up for success,
Yeah.
because that's such a hard time, and you don't have to struggle. So this has been so amazing, Miriam. Thank you so much for joining us on the Reentry Room podcast today.
Thank you for having me.
And if you are listening to this and this episode hit home and you really felt it, please share it with another mom who could really use the resources and help. And we will see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Thanks.